Good afternoon, everyone. Today we're exploring the historical accuracy of the Book of Acts, authored by Luke, and how its records align with extra-biblical sources. Our focus will be on how these historical accounts provide profound support for the early disciples' conviction that Jesus truly rose from the dead. Historical context and accuracy in Acts. The Book of Acts, written by Luke, is a continuation of his gospel and provides an account of the early church's formation and expansion. Luke's meticulous historical recording and attention to detail are evident throughout this book. Let's explore how Acts aligns with external historical records and supports the disciples' belief in the resurrection. Accurate historical references. Cities and officials. Luke's references to cities, regions, and officials are often confirmed by external historical sources. For instance, Luke accurately names the proconsul Gallio in Acts chapter 18, verse 12, a detail corroborated by Roman inscriptions and other historical records. His precise references to historical figures and locations lend credibility to the narrative. Cultural practices. Acts reflects accurate details about Jewish customs and Roman administrative procedures. The depiction of the trial before the Sanhedrin in Acts chapter 4 and Paul's defense before Felix and Festus in Acts chapters 24 and 25 align with what is known from historical and cultural studies about Jewish and Roman legal systems. Extra-biblical confirmation. Tacitus. The Roman historian Tacitus mentions early Christians and their persecution by Nero, indirectly supporting the early church's existence and the impact of Jesus' resurrection. While not directly about Acts, Tacitus's account confirms the context in which the early Christians were operating. Josephus, the Jewish historian Josephus, includes references to Jesus and his followers in his writings. Although the passages are debated for interpolation, they still affirm the historical presence of Jesus and the existence of early Christian communities. Eyewitness Testimony and the Resurrection. The Book of Acts emphasizes the disciples' and early Christians' unwavering conviction that Jesus rose from the dead. This conviction is supported by several key factors. Witness testimonies. Personal accounts. In Acts chapter 1, verses 21 to 22, Peter describes the criteria for choosing a new apostle, emphasizing that the candidates must have been witnesses of Jesus' resurrection. This requirement underscores the central role of eyewitness testimony in early Christianity. Public proclamation. The disciples' bold proclamation of the resurrection, despite facing persecution, is documented in Acts. Their willingness to endure hardship for their testimony supports their genuine belief in the resurrection. Acts chapter 5, verses 30 to 32, highlights Peter's declaration that they are witnesses of Jesus' resurrection and that God has exalted him. Transformation of the disciples. From fear to boldness. The transformation of the disciples from fearful individuals hiding after Jesus' crucifixion to bold proclaimers of his resurrection is significant. This dramatic change is noted in Acts and aligns with the psychological impact one would expect from a genuine, life-altering experience. Early Christian martyrdom. The willingness of early Christians to face martyrdom for their belief in the resurrection adds weight to their testimony. The Book of Acts records the trials and imprisonments faced by the apostles, reinforcing their commitment to the resurrection message. Theological and historical implications. The alignment of Acts with extra-biblical texts and the accuracy of its historical details bolster its credibility as a reliable historical source. Luke's thoroughness in recording historical context provides a strong foundation for understanding the early church's beliefs and experiences. Historical reliability. The alignment of Acts with extra-biblical texts and the accuracy of its historical details bolster its credibility as a reliable historical source. Luke's thoroughness in recording historical context provides a strong foundation for understanding the early church's beliefs and experiences. The conviction of the early church. The consistent testimony of the early disciples, their dramatic transformation, and their willingness to suffer for their belief in Jesus' resurrection provide profound support for the truth of the resurrection. The historical and personal evidence combined affirms that the early Christians were convinced of Jesus' risen life. Conclusion. The book of Acts, with its historical accuracy and detailed accounts, corroborates the belief held by the early disciples that Jesus truly rose from the dead. The alignment with extra-biblical texts and the profound conviction demonstrated by the early church offer compelling support for the resurrection. As we reflect on these evidences, let us be encouraged in our faith and inspired by the early Christians' bold witness. Amen.